Incredible true story. Single dad discovers hidden heartwarming bond with abandoned girl in rain. The storm raged like a wild beast, rain hammering against Mike's car as he sped through the streets of his small Midwestern town. He had just finished his second shift of the day, exhaustion winning a slow battle with worry. At 38, he felt like a juggler struggling to keep all his responsibilities in the air. 2 jobs, a teenage son named Jake, and the constant nagging fear that they were both slipping away. Tonight, that fear was even more gripping. Jake had been distant lately, lost in a haze of teenage angst and worries that Mike couldn't quite understand. Just as the wipers whipped away a torrential downpour, Mike's heart stopped. Under a shop awning, he spotted a small figure, a girl, no older than 12, huddled there, eyes wide and filled with terror. A visceral ache thudded in his chest. Who was she? Why was she out here alone? Without thinking, he pulled over. "Hey, kiddo, you okay?" he shouted over the booming thunder. She jumped at the sound but didn't run. Instead, she stepped forward. "What's your name?" Mike asked, his voice gentler now, holding out a hand like a lifeline. "Lily," she whispered, her voice barely rising above the storm. Tears streamed down her cheeks, mixing with the rain. I got lost." In that moment, a surge of compassion blurred his own burdens. He couldn't just leave her there. He opened the passenger door, and she slipped in, shaking like a leaf. The warmth of his car surrounded her, but nothing could warm the chill of her fear. As they drove home, Jake's excitement dwindled to a simmering resentment when he saw Lily. "Who is she?" his son demanded, arms crossed tight across his chest. "She's just a girl who needed help," Mike replied, trying to soothe the tension. But behind Jake's angry facade was a deep well of insecurity, one that Mike had unintentionally let fester. With Lily's presence, the walls of their small home felt even tighter. Mike strove to bridge the gap, his own heart aching with the pressure of it all. But with each passing hour, the atmosphere thickened. Jake's jealousy ignited little fights, words dashed through the air like arrows. One moment they'd huddle over takeout, laughing awkwardly. The next, Jake would storm off, leaving Mike and Lily stranded in the silence. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. All around them, the small town buzzed with whispers. Why would a single dad take in an abandoned girl? They'd scoff, the judgment palpable in the air. But Mike didn't care. He just wanted to protect Lily from whatever darkness had sent her running. And yet, just as buds of understanding began blooming between him, Jake, and Lily shattered their fragile harmony. One night, as the rain drummed a steady rhythm against the roof, she vanished, an empty space where hope used to dwell. At that moment, Mike realized he'd not only taken in a girl, but had unknowingly cracked open the door to his own heart and the struggles within his family. In the silence that followed, he and Jake faced a daunting question. What does family truly mean? Would they have the strength to confront their fears and redefine it together? With echoes of faith and tension hanging thick in the air, the storm both outside and within threatened to change everything they once believed. The panic wrapped around Mike like a heavy blanket as he searched their small house, every creak of the floorboards amplifying his dread. "Lily, where are you?" His voice was a mix of urgency and fear, but the only response was the storm's relentless drum against the roof. He thought of the moments they'd spent together. She had been a spark of light in the darkness creeping into their lives. Beautiful laughter filled their small kitchen, and a few shared stories across the dining table created an unexpected bond. But now, that light was snuffed out by a growing void. Jake, still sulking in his room, refused to meet his father's frantic worry. "You should have just let her go. She probably didn't want to stay anyway," he shouted from behind closed doors, laced with teenage bitterness. "Jake!" Mike's frustration bubbled over, but deep down he knew his son was hurting too. "We need to find her. She needs us." "I'm not helping. What if she runs away again? Jake snapped, the edge of rebellion in his tone, hinting at his own feelings of abandonment. In that moment, Mike understood. It wasn't just about Lily, it was about Jake. The uncertainty in their home and his son's own fears of being replaced, the unspoken competition for love in this suddenly expanded family. Mike's heart ached with empathy for them both. "Listen to me, please," Mike said, voice softer but still filled with urgency. "I can't do this without you. If we want her to stay, we have to show her she's safe here. Together, we can find her." Jake hesitated for a heartbeat longer, then grudgingly opened his door. "Fine, what do we do?" With their minds made up, they grabbed flashlights, stepping into the rain that hammered the earth outside. The air was thick with apprehension, each step a reminder of the storm raging within and around them. They called her name, the sound almost lost among the swirling winds. As they walked the streets, Mike glanced sideways at Jake, who was silent, his brow furrowed with concentration. The worry etched on his son's face mirrored his own. "You know, if anything happened to her, I couldn't forgive myself. She's just a kid," Mike said, his hand resting on Jake's shoulder. Jake glanced up, meeting his dad's gaze, and for a moment, a flicker of understanding passed between them. "You think she feels like we do? Like everyone's out to get her?" "Maybe," Mike replied, choking on his emotions as a knot formed in his throat. "That's why we can't give up on her." In that moment, they were not just father and son. They were allies trying to protect someone who had found her way to them amidst the chaos. As they wandered down familiar streets turned strange by twilight, a flicker of hope ignited in Mike's chest. Then, just as they rounded a corner, Jake's flashlight beam landed on a small figure sitting against the cold, wet wall of a cafe. "Is that Lily?" Mike called out, rushing forward as relief washed over him, soaking through his worries like the rain drenching his clothes. Lily looked up, her face pale and tear-streaked. "I thought I lost you," she murmured, and in that moment she reached for Mike, clutching his jacket tightly. As the storm threatened to tear them apart, could this bond weather the difficulties ahead? Jake stood back, an unvoiced question lingering in his eyes. Would embracing this girl allow him to reclaim the relationship with his father he feared was slipping away? And in the heart of chaos, Mike took a deep breath, knowing their journey was far from over. The storm may have brought them together, but now they'd have to face the true test of their new family, a test that could either unite them or tear them apart. Would they find the strength to evolve? Lily clung to Mike like he was a lifeline, her small frame trembling against the chill of the night. Jake stood back, a mix of relief and uncertainty etched across his features. "Why did you run away?" Mike asked gently, crouching down to meet her eyes. Her gaze dropped, a storm of emotions brewing beneath her delicate surface. "I didn't mean to. I thought I could find my way," she replied, her voice barely audible over the relentless rain. Mike's heart sank. "You don't have to find your way alone, Lily. You have us. You can always come back." Jake shifted his weight, his flashlight beam wavering slightly. "You scared us," he added, trying to mask his vulnerability with a bravado that didn't quite fit. "We thought something terrible happened." Lily looked from Mike to Jake, her expression softening. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I thought you'd be better off without me." Mike felt a wave of guilt sweep over him. "No, you're part of this family now. You matter to us." The three of them stood together, the rain soaking everything around them. But within the little bubble they shared, warmth began to seep in. All their fears and misunderstandings hung heavy in the air, yet it was as if a fragile thread between them had begun to strengthen with each passing heartbeat. "Can we just go home?" Lily murmured, shivering slightly. "Yeah, let's get you dry," Mike replied, relief washing over him. He took her hand, and to his surprise, Jake stepped closer, wrapping an arm around Lily's shoulder in a protective gesture. Maybe there was hope for them after all. As they retraced their steps, Mike felt an ember of connection igniting in the air. This was more than a sense of danger that had brought them together. It was the start of understanding, of compassion that transcended words. They were in this together. The walk back home was silent but charged. Every raindrop felt like an unspoken promise, the rhythm of their footsteps a reminder of the shared burden they carried as a family. When they finally arrived, Mike ushered them inside, shaking off the rain like a dog emerging from a bath. He led them to the kitchen, grabbing a couple of blankets and draping them over Lily and Jake, who exchanged glances in a moment that felt almost sacred. "Hot chocolate?" Mike offered, hoping the warmth would chase away the chill in their bones. "Yeah!" Lily's smile was a flicker of light, a palpable glow against the shadow of the evening. As Mike prepared the drinks, he could feel Jake's gaze on him. "Dad, do you think she'll really stay?" The question hung heavily in the air, filled with a vulnerability that shook Mike to his core. "I don't know, son. But we have to make it worth her while. We have to build a place where she feels loved, wanted." Jake nodded, a semblance of understanding threading between them. Soon they sat around the kitchen table, steam rising from their cups, the storm outside slowly fading into a gentle rain. Laughter erupted as Lily took a sip and made a face, prompting Jake to smirk. Okay, it's not that bad." She chuckled, the sound echoing through the kitchen, and for a moment a semblance of normalcy enveloped them. Mike felt his heart swell, warmth spreading through him. Maybe they had made it past a hurdle tonight, but deep down, he knew they had many more to face. As the rain continued to pitter-patter, a sudden clash of thunder roared outside, shaking their fragile sanctuary. The lights flickered, then dimmed, before settling back into their warm glow. "Do you think we're safe now?" Jake asked quietly, looking between his father and Lily. Mike took a breath, the question echoing far beyond the storm. "That's what we'll find out," he replied. But as a new shadow entered the room, one they hadn't expected, Mike felt an unsettling chill creep back up his spine. What else was lurking outside, waiting for them to let their guard down? And in that fragile moment, as the night wore on, they all realized the storm was only just beginning. Would they be strong enough to face what was to come? The rain drummed against the roof like a heartbeat, the echoes blending with Lily's unsteady breaths as they settled around the table. The soft flicker of the candlelight danced across their faces, illuminating the mix of anxiety and hope in their eyes. Mike sensed the gravity of the silence, where fears lurked just below the surface. Then the shadow moved again, flickering past the window, a fleeting shape that sent a jolt through Mike's spine. He glanced at Lily and Jake, both of them flinching at the same time. "Did you see that?" Jake's voice was low, thick with dread. "Probably just the wind," Mike replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. But his heart raced, beating a frantic rhythm against his chest. Lily squeezed her blanket tight around her small shoulders, looking pale beneath the kitchen's warm glow. "It felt like someone was watching us." Before Mike could respond, there was a sharp knock at the door that made them jump. It was too frantic, too insistent. He met Jake's wide eyes and instinctively took a step toward the door, pulse racing. "Stay here," he instructed, his voice steady for their sake. He opened the door a crack, peering into the damp darkness outside. The night swallowed any passers-by whole, but the rain washed away any traces of comfort. "Who's there?" he called out, keeping his voice firm even as uncertainty twisted in his gut. "Please, I need help!" a voice rasped from the shadows. Heart racing, Mike threw the door open wider. In front of him stood a drenched figure, bedraggled and shivering. The stranger's eyes gleamed with fear, reflecting the dim light from inside. "What happened?" Mike asked, taking a closer look. "I was caught in the storm. There was an accident," the woman stammered, raking a hand through her soaked hair, water streaming down her face. She looked at Mike with pleading eyes. "I need a phone. My daughter, I can't find her." In that moment, Mike felt a rush of emotions. He looked back at Lily and Jake, weighing his options carefully. A part of him wanted to shut the door, to keep his own family safe, but there was also a desperate need that tugged at his heart, a call for help that echoed too closely with Lily's own abandonment. "Come in," he decided, stepping aside to let her in. She staggered in past him, gasping for air like she hadn't breathed in hours. "Call the police," Jake urged, his voice sharp with urgency. "I will," Mike reassured him, his feet moving instinctively towards the phone on the wall. "We'll figure this out." As he dialed, he could feel the tension in the room gently shifting. Lily's eyes were glued to the stranger, and for a moment everything felt fragile again. The woman wore the same haunted look that Lily had carried when they first met. Connections sparked, memories interlaced, and compassion grew heavy in the air. "What's your name?" Mike asked, trying to draw her out, to fill the silence that churned between them. "Claire," she breathed, her fingers trembling around the edge of the kitchen counter, as if holding on against the tide. "Let's hope your daughter's okay," Mike said as the operator answered. "Just hold on, okay? We're all in this together." He couldn't shake the feeling that this storm was far bigger than the rain outside. They were no longer just fighting the weather. This was about facing fears, about pulling each other out of darkness. But as he listened intently to the phone call, a new thought snaked its way into his mind. What if the storm wasn't just out there? What if it was waiting, lurking, excuse-wrapped just around the corner? And just as that thought crossed his mind, a crash echoed from outside, the sound tearing through the fabric of their fragile sanctuary. "What was that?" Lily whispered, clutching her blanket tighter. Mike's grip tightened on the phone, and for the first time that night he truly feared for their safety. A vulnerability washed over the room, mingling with the rising tension. He stole a glance at Jake and felt each second stretch unbearably. Would they find the strength to confront the chaos outside their walls? "Stay close," he murmured, heart pounding louder than the storm itself. In the gathering darkness, the night held mysteries they weren't ready for, and as the storm whipped through the quiet corners of their lives, each one wondered, what would come next? The crash outside was followed by a thick silence. They all exchanged worried glances, hearts pounding like a drum in the fragile cocoon of the kitchen. Mike felt the weight of responsibility press on his shoulders. "Did you hear that?" Claire's voice shook as she stepped back, her eyes darting towards the door. "Yes, but let's not panic," Mike said, trying to inject calm into the chaos brewing around them. He hung up the phone, knowing he might have just called for help, but that didn't change the fact that danger lingered outside. Jake stood tall, fists clenched. "I'm going to check it out," he declared, determination mixing with fear in his eyes. "No!" Mike said sharply, his pulse racing again. "We need to stay inside. There's no telling what's out there." "But what if it's my sister?" Claire interrupted, her voice high with desperation. Mike held up a hand, trying to think amid the swirling tension. "Let's all breathe. We'll figure this out together." Lily shuffled closer to her father, her small body radiating warmth but also fear. "What if it's not safe?" she whispered. "It's okay, sweetheart," Mike murmured, pulling her close. He glanced at Jake, who seemed ready to bolt. "Why don't we huddle together? You, me, Lily, and Claire. Safety in numbers." Claire nodded, moving to the kitchen table as the rain lashed against the windows. The candle flickered, casting ghostly shadows that made the corners of the room seem alive. They huddled in an awkward cluster, each inhaling the raw scent of rain mixed with damp skin and a hint of candle wax. The intimate space became their fortress. "What do we do?" Jake asked, his voice suddenly small. Mike felt the burden of being the protector settle on him like a heavy cloak. "For now we wait," he said. "Help is on the way." Outside, a low rumbling echoed. Thunder rolled ominously, matching the unrest in his heart. Mike glanced at Claire, who had her hands folded tightly in her lap. "Claire, what happened to your daughter?" he asked gently, trying to draw her into the conversation. Claire looked down, her face a mask of worry and pain. "We were driving. The storm hit and—" "She was in the back seat," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "I got out to check on her, and then everything just happened so fast. I lost sight of the car." The weight of her confession settled heavily in the air. Mike's heart clenched at the thought of a little girl alone in the storm, just like Lily had once been. "Where were you headed?" he asked, hoping to guide Claire away from her fear. "To my sister's. It was supposed to be a safe place." Claire's voice faded, her gaze lost in anguish. Mike reached out, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We'll find her. We will." In that moment, a flicker of hope danced amid their fears. Just then, the lights in the kitchen flickered, casting shadows against the walls. Instinctively, everyone tensed, their thoughts racing. "What was that?" Jake questioned, his eyes wide. "Just the storm," Mike said, though the tremor in his voice made him doubt even his own words. Suddenly, a loud crash rocked the house, more violent than the last. It was accompanied by an eerie silence that closed in on them, thick with an unsettling tension. "Let's not wait any longer," Mike said, trying to mask his own fear with bravado. "I'll check around the house, see if everything is okay." "Together," Lily insisted, squeezing her father's hand. "Together," he agreed, feeling the strength of their bond in that simple word. As he moved towards the door, a chilling realization dawned on him. This storm had brought them together, but it might also tear them apart. They were standing on the edge of a dark abyss. "Stay close," he said, gripping his family's hands tightly. In that moment of looming uncertainty, Mike felt the storm raging not just outside but inside them as well. What awaited them on the other side of that door? As he turned the knob slowly, the wind howled. A new question bubbled to the surface. What would they find when they stepped into the unknown? As Mike opened the door, a rush of cold air swept into the kitchen, mingling with the warmth of their huddled bodies. The world outside had transformed. Dark shadows danced under the eerie glow of the lightning, illuminating the chaotic landscape. Rain lashed against the ground, creating a symphony of chaos that mirrored their own hearts. "Stay right behind me," he whispered, feeling Lily's small hand trembling in his grip. Claire and Jake nodded, their expressions a mix of trepidation and resolve. They stepped out, the weight of the storm pressing down on them. It was like walking into a veil of melancholy. Each step felt heavy, as if the very ground was trying to keep them from moving forward. Mike felt the intensity of the moment seep into his bones. "How do you see anything?" Jake called out, squinting against the fierce wind. "Not yet," Mike responded, his voice steady. The porch creaked underfoot, and Mike could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He tightened his hold on Lily, ready to shield her if necessary. The crash they had heard earlier echoed in his mind. Something had fallen, something important. "We need to check the yard," he said, steeling himself. "Over there." Claire pointed to a shadow that had toppled against the fence. His heart sank at its shape. It looked like the remains of a car. "Stay back," he instructed, edging closer with caution. The storm seemed to resonate with their fear, a violent reminder that nature often doesn't care about humanity's struggles. As they neared, he took a deep breath. The bottom of his stomach churned. What if they found the worst? He stopped abruptly. Not far from the wreckage, something moved. A small figure, crouched, drenched and shivering, was curled in on itself. Mike's heart raced. "Who is that?" he whispered, taking a step forward. "Wait," Jake urged, placing a hand on Mike's shoulder. It could be dangerous. But Mike felt a pull, a desperate need to reach out. "No, it's a kid," he said, almost to himself. "Is it?" Claire's voice trailed off. A sob caught in her throat. Was that a familiar shape? Could that be her daughter? With a burst of resolve, Mike moved toward the figure. When he got close enough, he crouched down. "Hey, are you okay? It's going to be all right." He struggled to keep his voice steady amid the wind and rain. The figure turned, and Mike's breath caught. It was a girl no older than 8 or 9, but she was not Marie, Claire's daughter. Her face was streaked with mud and tears, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Help me," she whispered, trembling. Mike looked back at Claire, who had come closer, her eyes wide with shock. "She's lost," she said, pain lacing her voice. "Just like my girl. Just like—" "Stay strong," Mike urged, looking at the girl with empathy. "You're safe now. We're going to take you inside." The girl nodded, reaching out a shaky hand. Mike took it gently, feeling the warmth of her small fingers. The connection was instant, sinking deep into his heart. The storm raged, but in this moment, something shifted. As they walked back towards the house, Mike couldn't shake the feeling of something bigger at play, a connection that transcended this chaos. "Where are your parents?" he asked, hoping against hope for an answer. She looked down, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know." The weight of those words settled heavily like the rain above. There was uncertainty ahead, but also a flicker of hope hidden within the storm. "Let's get you warm," Mike said softly, directing her with urgency. What was the truth beneath the chaos? With each step back inside, he felt new weight, a responsibility deeper than before. As he closed the door, sealing the storm outside, he couldn't help but wonder what secrets would unfold behind those walls. Would they be able to find peace in each other amid the raging storm? Once inside, the chaotic storm felt distant as they gathered around the small kitchen table. The girl sat in a chair much too big for her frame, her meager shoulders hunched in on themselves, as if she could disappear into her own sadness. Claire stood beside her, warmth radiating from her like a protective shield, but Mike sensed the unraveling emotions beneath her calm exterior. "Here, take this," Jake said, handing the girl a large towel. She accepted it slowly, as if unsure of what to do or how to respond. As she wrapped the cloth around her shoulders, Mike could see that her eyes were scanning the room, drinking in every corner, every shadow. "What's your name?" Mike asked gently, hoping to draw her out of her shell. "Emma," the girl replied, her voice barely above a whisper. It trembled, echoing the sounds of the storm still raging outside. "Emma, that's a pretty name," Mike said, trying to coax a smile from her, but her lips stayed sealed tight. "You have to be so scared," Claire said softly, kneeling down beside Emma. "We're going to take care of you. We promise." Emma nodded slowly, but didn't meet their eyes. Instead, she stared down at her mud-caked shoes, her small fingers clutching the towel as if it were a lifeline. Mike could feel a lump growing in his throat as he noticed the bruises and scrapes on her arms. "Did someone hurt you?" he asked, the words tasting bitter. Emma flinched at the question, squeezing her eyes shut. I fell. The trees. There was a lot of noise." Jake exchanged a worried glance with Claire. They all felt the weight of helplessness. "That's okay, honey," Claire said, her voice soothing. "You're safe now. We'll figure this out together." Mike felt the storm rage on, but something inside him began to stir. A fierce protectiveness, an urge to shield this little girl from everything that had hurt her. "Where did you come from?" he asked, pushing back the knot in his stomach. "I don't know," Emma replied, her voice barely a whisper. "I just remember running, then it got dark. I'm alone." A heavy silence enveloped the room. Mike couldn't shake the enormity of her words. This girl was lost, and yet here she was, hoping they could help her find her way home. Lily shuffled her feet, the innocence in her eyes filled with concern for the girl sitting before them. "You can stay with us, Emma. We have extra bed, a place you can sleep." The sincerity in Lily's voice struck Mike. He had raised her to be compassionate in a world that sometimes felt so harsh. Yet, as they all sat in the dim kitchen light, each with their own fears and uncertainties, it was more than just warmth and security he hoped to give. It was a chance for community, for love, amid the crushing storm. "Let's make some hot chocolate," Claire suggested, breaking the heavy air. "It'll warm you up, and it always helps." As Claire moved to the stove, Mike glanced at Emma again and caught her gaze. For a moment, through the haze of her fear, he saw a flicker of something. Hope. "Emma, if you could go anywhere right now, where would you want to be?" he asked, hoping to connect. She thought for a moment and whispered, "Home." The word hung in the air, dense and heavy. Mike's heart sank. The chaos hadn't just been outside, it found its way right inside this little girl, and they all felt the suffocating weight of it. Claire returned with steaming mugs, handing one to Emma. The girl cradled it in both hands as the warmth seeped into her skin. "Here's to new friends," Claire said with a reassuring smile. Mike raised his mug, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. "And to finding our way home," he added. But even as he spoke, a sudden crash sounded from outside. It echoed through their tiny sanctuary, pulling them back into the darkness that waited just beyond the door. "What was that?" Jake asked, eyes wide. Could it be more danger lurking in the storm, or a chance to uncover more about Emma's story? Mike felt the weight of future storms waiting to collide with their fragile peace. "Stay close," he warned. "We need to see what's happening." With a shared glance, the group braced themselves, ready to step back into the tempest and discover the truths hidden within it. Mike felt the weight of the mugs in his hands as he set his down, the clink echoing startlingly in the stillness that followed the crash. Outside, the wind whipped through the trees and heavy branches struck the ground like whispers of despair. "Emma, stay behind us," Claire instructed, her voice steady though he saw the tension in her shoulders. Emma nodded, her eyes wide, pooling with unshed tears that mirrored the storm outside. She moved closer to Claire, who instinctively wrapped an arm around her. The sight ignited something protective within Mike, stronger than he had ever felt before. "Jake, let's check it out," he said, feeling a surge of responsibility. They stepped toward the door, but not before catching those flickering eyes of Lily, filled with both innocence and fear. "Be careful," she called after them, her voice small. The two men exchanged a look that spoke volumes. This wasn't just about safety anymore. It was about keeping hope alive for everyone waiting inside. They opened the door, and the chaos of the storm rushed in. Cold air bit at Mike's skin, and the night sky was filled with shadows dancing violently. "Over there." Jake pointed to the edge of the property, where a large tree branch lay broken and splintered. It had fallen with a loud crack, and thankfully not on the house. Mike and Jake's feet crunched over the wet leaves as they approached, the noise swallowed quickly by the roar of the storm. "Let's keep an eye on it. If it's unstable, we need to clear the area," Mike said, glancing back at the door where Claire and the girls were peering out, worry etched on Claire's face. In the chaos, Mike noticed movement from the corner of his eye. A figure stumbled through the tree line, silhouetted against the flashes of lightning. His heart raced as the shape drew closer. "Hey, are you all right?" Mike called out, his voice rising above the noise. He felt adrenaline thrumming through him. The figure emerged, revealing a disheveled man, clothes drenched and eyes frantic. "Help! Please!" he shouted, his breath ragged. "I'm lost. My daughter. We were separated." Panic flooded Mike's veins. "Your daughter? Where did you last see her?" he demanded, urgency igniting his voice. "Just past the creek. She was scared," the man stammered, desperation lining his features. The storm seemed to howl in agreement around them, and Mike felt the weight of the moment press down hard. "Jake, we should help him find her," he said, glancing back at the house where Claire had stepped through the doorway. "Are you sure it's getting worse out here?" Jake replied, worry etched across his face. But Mike's mind raced. "That girl is missing. What if she's alone and scared like Emma? We need to try." A flicker of understanding crossed Jake's face. He nodded. "Let's do this." Mike turned to the man, determination igniting in his chest. "Lead the way. We'll find her." As they sprinted toward the darkness beyond the yard, thunder rumbled overhead, shaking the ground beneath their feet. The storm was wild, but the desperation in the man's eyes fueled their resolve. Back inside, Claire sensed the tension as well. Emma's small frame trembled, uncertainty swirling in her eyes. "Are they going to be okay?" she whispered. "I think so," Claire said, though her heart raced with the worry of what could unfold. She knelt down to Emma's level, searching for a spark of hope to share. What if they find her? What if they bring her home? "Home," Emma whispered again, her gaze distant. A flurry of mixed emotions filled the room, fear, hope, determination. But above it all, Claire sensed there was something more brewing, a bond that tied them all together in their collective fight against the storm. Outside, Mike and Jake pushed further into the trees, the wind howling defiantly. But with every step toward the unknown, Mike felt a flicker of determination echo within him, reminding him of the importance of connection amidst chaos. Little did they know, a revelation awaited them in the heart of the storm, one that would change everything. What if this is just the beginning? Mike thought, adrenaline coursing through him as they pressed deeper into the darkness. What if the lost were not just out there, but waiting to be found? Branches whipped violently around Mike and Jake as they advanced into the darkness. The wind howled like a wounded animal, echoing their racing hearts. Mike squinted, straining to make out the path as the storm surged. "Stay close!" he shouted to the desperate father, who was now following closely behind. They stumbled through puddles, the squelching earth threatening to swallow them whole. Each flash of lightning provided a brief glimpse of their surroundings, revealing twisting trees and thick underbrush. The creek gurgled nearby, a reminder of where the girl had last been seen. "I can't lose her," the man breathed, his voice trembling. "She's all I have left." The urgency in his words ignited something deep within Mike. He thought about Emma and how vulnerable she was, tucked away in the safety of the house, still tied to uncertainty and fear. "Let's move faster," Jake urged, his eyes darting around as if the shadows themselves could offer answers. As they pressed on, Mike's mind raced with thoughts of those left behind. Meanwhile, the desperation within the father grew heavier with every step, like a weight dragging him down. They arrived at the creek, water churning angrily. Mike's heart sank. It was treacherous. "Where exactly did you see her last?" he pressed, trying to keep the man focused. "Just over there, by the big rock," he pointed, anxiety spilling from him. Without another word, they scrambled over to the spot. The ground was uneven, and the rain mixed with mud made their footing unstable. "Stay back!" Mike yelled, but the father had already plunged toward the bank, calling his daughter's name over and over, voice echoing into the night. Suddenly, another crack of thunder shook the ground. The man flinched, but continued on, desperation driving him forward. Mike felt a surge of protectiveness clawing at him. This man was losing control in the storm, and every second counted. "Jake, let's search along the creek. We might catch her if she's around here," Mike yelled, signaling toward the water's edge. They fanned out, glancing under branches, peering behind rocks, listening intently for any sound of a child calling. Time felt suspended, but the storm raged on relentlessly. Minutes dragged into an eternity. Mike's breaths came out in ragged bursts, his heart aching not only for Emma, but now for this father, his raw anguish palpable. "Please, Laura," the man called out again, his voice cracking. It was then that a whisper of movement brushed against Mike's awareness, something light against the muddy bank. He turned, eyes straining to pierce the shadows. "Did you hear that?" he asked Jake, who looked back, eyes wide. "Maybe," he replied hesitantly. "Over here!" Mike shouted, sprinting toward the sound, heart thundering in his chest. He saw a small figure huddled beneath the overhang of rocks, shivering but alive. The girl. Her face was streaked with mud, but her eyes shone bright with terror and recognition. "Daddy!" she cried, her voice ringing out like a powerful beacon amidst the storm. The moment electrified the air between them. Mike rushed closer, kneeling down. "It's okay. We're here to help. You're safe now," he assured her, reaching out slowly as if she might vanish at any moment. The father's eyes filled with tears as he took in the sight. The storm raged louder, but for a heartbeat, there was only them, an unshakable bond forged in the heart of chaos. As the child reached for her father, Mike felt something deep shift. This was why they had come. Yet as joy filled the night, a shudder ran through the ground beneath them, and Mike instinctively looked back, sensing that their fight might not be over. "Is the storm getting worse?" Jake shouted, his voice breaking through the moment. But Mike couldn't shake the feeling that there was more hidden in the darkness, waiting just beneath the surface. What if this storm holds more secrets? What if it has come to test not just their resolve, but their very souls, he wondered, looking back at the group, determined to face whatever came next. As the rain continued to pour like a relentless river, the reunited family stood together, bound by the fragile threads of hope entwined with fear. The father, now drenched and worn, embraced his daughter tightly, sobs mixing with the thunder outside. It was a reminder that amid chaos, there existed moments of profound joy, and Mike felt that same magnetism of connection pulse between them. "Come on," Mike said gently. "Let's get you both back to the house. It's warm and safe there." They began trudging back through the storm, mud sucking at their feet. Emma and Claire would be waiting, and he hoped to carry the light of their reunion into the darkness that still lingered around them. As they neared the house, he turned back, catching sight of the trees bending against the wind. The storm had not just been a wild tempest, it had become a reflection of their own turbulence, pushing every last bit of strength they had to confront the unknown. Once inside, the warmth enveloped them, offering a shield against the chaos outside. Mike ushered the father and daughter in with urgency. "Claire! Emma!" he called out, relief surging within him as he spotted them huddled on the kitchen floor, eyes wide with worry. "We found her," the father exclaimed, holding his daughter as if he had just rescued a beacon from the depths of despair. Emma's eyes widened, and the warmth spread like sunshine as she rushed to the little girl's side, their innocence igniting something radiant in that room filled with shadows. "You're safe now," Claire murmured, kneeling down to pull Emma and the newcomer into a welcoming embrace. Their laughter rang like bells amidst the storm, a sound that seemed to cut through the tumultuous night, bringing solace to their weary hearts. "Thank you," the father said, his voice trembling with gratitude. You saved her. Mike felt a rush of pride. They hadn't just weathered the storm, they had transformed amidst it, becoming something stronger than mere survival. Even Jake, who had stepped back to give space, wore a softer, less guarded expression as he leaned against the counter. He was absorbing it all, the true essence of family, support, the gentle yet tenacious love that connected them. "Lily," Mike said, nudging his daughter gently, "why not make some hot chocolate for us?" With a bright smile, Lily jumped in to help, and slowly, the atmosphere shifted from chaos to warmth, a collective effort to hold the fragile happiness they had fought for. The sound of laughter began to weave through the room, echoing out against the night. Mike caught Jake watching as Emma and Claire shared a bond almost instantaneous, laughter bubbling between them like a gentle stream. As they warmed up, the storms outside began to quiet, almost as if giving way to the change occurring within. Mike felt hope blossoming in his chest, a quiet recognition that they were all healing together in this freshly formed family unit. Sipping on their hot chocolate, the evening carried stories, quiet, gentle, and healing. They spoke about fears and secrets, joys and newfound resolutions, the profound understanding that vulnerability did not mean weakness, but strength when carried together. They breathed life and love into each other's lives. The bond that tied them only strengthened with shared challenges, moments they couldn't fathom at first. But a stillness settled as they remembered the storm still raging outside, a reminder of life's unpredictability. What if they faced another trial ahead? Mike met Jake's gaze, filled with understanding and determination. They had weathered one storm. If they stood together as they had tonight, they could face whatever was to come. In that knowing exchange, he recognized the unconditional love they had built through the darkness. "What if we make this a home for all of us?" Mike said, his voice firm. Everyone held their breath in awe as he turned to embrace Emma, tethering her heart to theirs. "You don't have to be lost anymore," he said softly, his spirit bright. The storm would always be there, but they had the choice to shelter one another. It was a moment of realization. They were not just a collection of strays drawn together by tragedy. They had become a family, built on love, laughter, and new beginnings. "Together," they whispered, a shared promise among them. Slowly they began to breathe in the warmth of connection, letting the laughter fill the spaces that had once felt empty. The storm wasn't gone, but now it felt like it was merely an echo of what had been. They had emerged stronger, ready to embrace life as it came. And as the first rays of dawn broke through the remnants of night, Mike couldn't help but smile, knowing they had crafted their path through the darkness by learning to cherish the light they found in each other. This was their home now, forged by resilience, love, and the unwavering bond that saw them through the wildest storm. Now that you've reached the end of this incredible journey, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to catch all our exclusive stories that will inspire you to cherish the connections we forge with one another. Leave a like now, so you can help us spread this message. Every click feeds the algorithm and lets others discover this heartfelt journey. Comment your thoughts on the ending. We want to know your reactions and feelings about their transformation. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the importance of love, loss, and starting anew. Let's make sure they don't miss out. Thank you for being part of this story, and let's keep the spirit of connection alive.